First thing I tell new clients is this: don't waste time on bad houses. And when I say bad homes, I don't mean like ugly paint or old carpet. I mean homes that have clear signs the seller is not motivated. The condition doesn't match the price, or there are some deal breakers hidden there in the listing photos. Most home buyers tour maybe 12 or 15 houses before realizing that probably half of them were never an option to begin with. It was obvious in hindsight that the seller was unrealistic or there was some other deal breaker in there. So that's why I evaluate houses first. I look at motivation, condition, anything that tells me whether a house is actually worth the time it takes to go out and see it. So today we're going to run 2 new St. Pete listings. Just go to buywise.homes. It's 10 questions that you answer. It'll help you sort of hone down. You want to go see 8 houses this weekend, but you only have time to see 6. You need to figure out a way to find the 2 that are not worth seeing. And that's why I built BuyWise, to help you uncover potential deal breakers, unmotivated sellers, houses that you can cross off the list so you can focus on good houses. The homebuyer success rate over the first 12 months. So in other words, if somebody says, I'm going to buy a house today, 9 out of 10 people will not have bought a house 12 months from now. So let's just jump into it with our first house, and then we will evaluate these houses using BuyWise as we go. So the first thing that I always look at, and this is 100% of the time, is going to be the flood zone. For a lot of people, myself included, because I've been down this road before, is I personally am not going to buy a house that's unelevated if it's in a high-risk flood zone. For me, it's just a matter of time before the house is going to need to be gutted. I'm going to have to move out for 6 months until it gets fixed. I'm not going to do it. So question number 1, is this house in a high-risk flood zone? So today, the first house we're looking at is in the Bear Creek neighborhood. So let's just take a quick look at the map here, and you can see this is downtown. These are all of your Gulf beaches, St. Pete Beach right here. And this is Bear Creek. It's sort of kind of right down Central Ave. It's a really good location. Here's Central Ave, so you can get right downtown in 15 or 20 minutes out to Pasadena over the bridge to St. Pete Beach. So location is great. And here it is right here, a flood zone X. So our first question, is this house in a high-risk flood zone? The answer is no. Second question, how long has this house been on the market? Remember, houses that have been sitting for weeks, telling the seller there's nobody out here at this price and it's time to start thinking about looking at lowering the price. So this house has been on the market 151 days. That is 5 full months. So we're 60 plus days there. That's a good sign. And how many price drops has this house had? Again, what we like to see, the most motivated sellers don't sit around for 3 months and then drop the price. Every few weeks, maybe every month, you'll see a modest price drop as they try to find where the market is. Those are the best sellers and listing agents to deal with. And we see it has been on the market since January 1st. They started at 634. 2.5 months, they dropped it about 15,000. Really, it took another 3.5 months before they dropped it to 595. So, we might say this is a motivated seller that they've had 2 price drops here. So let's just jump back in and answer that question. How many price drops? 2. Next question is the size of the price drops. And in this case, we're at almost 40,000. So that's between 25 and 50,000. And when was the last price drop? It was just today, actually. So less than 30 days. And we'll get to that question in a minute. Well, let's just get back into this pricing action for a second. So this house sold in 2022 for $498. The new owners did a few things to it, but it was largely renovated. So what we want to consider here also is 2022 prices were still going up. And here's a pretty good chart. So we go back to 2022 and we see coming out of the pandemic, that's when we got the big upswing in prices. And then by the time you got to 2023, see, we have 396 here for Bear Creek, and now we're down to 392. So prices have been flat since 2023. So there are sellers out there who think that if they bought in 2023, they should get a return. In some neighborhoods, that might be the case, but by and large, if you bought in 2023 or later, you'd be lucky to break even. That's just the reality, and that's what I'm seeing. But a lot of sellers are kind of overpricing their house, thinking that maybe they at least break even after transaction costs. So This house was last purchased in October of 2022. So we would expect, again, we were at about 382. Let's see, October 397 was the median price in the neighborhood. And it's actually a little bit down. So that tells us right there that we may have a seller here who at some point is going to come to the realization that this price was pretty unrealistic. Obviously got no action there, made a couple of price drops. I wouldn't be surprised if this house has a little further to fall. Well, that remains to be seen. So let's jump into the next question. The age of the roof of this house. Why is this important? If you've been any time in Florida, you know that roof age and insurance are tied together. Once you get to a roof that's 18, 20 years old, the insurance company is going to start telling you they're not going to renew the policy unless you get a new roof. So a big selling point is getting as new a roof as possible. Here we've got September of 2021. So that's before it sold the last time. So we've got a 5-year-old roof here, which is good. The age of the AC is, again here, AC and water heater 2022. So we're in good shape there, 0 to 5 years. And are the windows updated? There's no information in, oh, well, actually there is. It says natural light from newer windows. Now, what we really want to see is impact windows. And if they were, the description would certainly say that. So we're going to say they're newer windows, but not impact windows. And then does the house fit with the neighborhood? We haven't even looked at any of the pictures yet, so let's jump into that right now. Does this house fit the neighborhood? Now, this cover photo is a little washed out for my taste, a little over edited, and I think that that probably is hurting it a little bit. But if you know this neighborhood, Bear Creek, you know that the houses are typically pretty nice, well kept. You can see, I don't know how old this street view is, but most of the houses in the area are going to be around that 1,500 square foot mark. So let's just go ahead and safely answer that yes, it fits in with the area. And the reason we ask that question is, you don't necessarily want to buy the biggest and best, most expensive house in the neighborhood. So let's jump into the next one. What were your first impressions of this listing? Now remember, this first picture here, this cover photo, I'm looking at a computer. If you're looking on your phone, this is going to be the cover photo. Is this going to stop you from scrolling? I would argue that we have way overexposed up here. It's just white, and you're getting all sorts of weird shadows in here. I think that's hurting this house. I mean, it's tough to get a photo without these big oak trees in the way, but you also, and if you follow one thing that I say is look for diamonds in the rough when it comes to listing. When you see that beautiful dusk photo of a house, you can bet that lots of people are stopping and clicking on that. They're probably getting showings that they might not even deserve. But when you have a cover photo that's not great, people are scrolling right past that, and that could present an opportunity. So when you see, a mediocre or not great photo, take another look, especially if it fits your other criteria. So I would say that first impressions would be that's an average or a decent main photo, nothing spectacular. And so let's take a look at the score. So we've scored an 84 here, which is about what I expected. Anything above, well, it's actually in the medium range here. 70 to 85 is go see it. The way that I have it written here is these homes show clear signs of value with multiple price drops, newer systems, or selling adjusting to the market. I think we could agree with that. And if this type of house fits your needs, it's worth scheduling a showing. And I think that that's pretty accurate here. So let's jump into some of the pictures to see if the house is as nice on the inside as it is on the outside. It's kind of that mid-century modern feel, a lot of bright colors and pinks, and looks, somebody's got really nice taste. Super clean, decent sized living room. So the owners of this house have taken care of it, and it's almost impossible to tell if this house is vacant or owner occupied because it looks so clean and staged. And the interior photos are pretty great, actually. It's like a newer kitchen. I think the whole house was redone in 2021. So this would have been, you can always tell by the steps here, this probably was the garage. That was converted into another bedroom. And then as we head out back, we see why there's a little bit of a premium on this house. And that is a nice pool with a nice pergola over here. So everything looks really good in this house. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. If you're in the market for something in the 1,500 square foot range, a 3.2, you know, this price here, if you watch my other videos, you know I like to see us around 300 a square foot. Obviously a little bit more for a pool, you know, in the 330, 340. I think because we're in the Bear Creek neighborhood here, we're going to get even more of a premium. It's a great location, easy to the beach, straight shot to downtown. I think we've got a little bit more to drop here. We've got a nice $40,000 price drop, but I would like to see this house probably in the 549 range, to be honest with you. So drop a comment. Let me know what you think about this 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot house in Bear Creek. No flood zone. All signs point to a fairly motivated seller with a couple of price drops. The house is in good condition, a lot of new systems. I think this one is worth a look. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. And let's take a look at house number 2. All right, let's take a look at house number 2 now. We can see here this one is in the Jungle Terrace neighborhood. And let's bring up our BuyWise app to start. And Jungle Terrace can be a little tricky because it is very close to the water. If you're not familiar with it, let's just take a quick look at the map and you'll be able to see just how close we are. I mean, you know, we're literally a few streets from Boca Ciega Bay here. So you always want to be careful about that. Although for the most part, if you're on the west side of Park Street, you're going to be in the flood zone. If you're on the east side, most likely you're not in a flood zone, but let's double check with the flood zone code here. And as you can see, flood zone code X, which means you're in a low risk flood zone. If you get a mortgage, you're not going to be required to get flood insurance. A and AE are the ones to avoid, especially if it's a non-elevated house. I would never recommend one. It's up to you if you want to take a chance on that, but we know with the last few years having all the storms, a lot of people have kind of been wiped out. So let's answer no to the high risk flood zone. And how long has this house been on the market? We see it's been on the market 109 days. So we're going to assume that the seller is feeling a little bit of pressure at this point, more than 60 days. And let's take a look at the price action here. How many price drops have we had? All right, so let's look at the price action here. This house went on the market last August for $350. It ended up selling for $300, which tells us probably needed a lot of work. And then in February, it went onto the market at $450. So I'm going to say this is probably a modest renovation. Now, they've been on the market for 100 and something days now, and they've had 1, 2, 3, 4 price drops of about $25,000. So let's punch that into our BuyWise. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3 or more price drops. And for a total of $25,000. And the last price drop was just a few days ago. So less than 30 days. We like to see methodical, consistent price drops if possible. The age of the roof, let's take a look at that. Okay, and we see here we've got a brand new roof. That's something that we love to see. And it says a newer AC. So we'll take a guess on that. And new roof, 0 to 5 years. And then we'll assume the AC is at least or less than 5 years old anyway. And then what about windows here? Do we have any newer windows? No, we don't. We'll just take a quick look at the photo here to see if we can gauge whether. You can clearly see these look like, whenever you see white on a house that's this old, it tells us that they've been changed out at some point. They're not the old aluminum crank-out windows, but those don't appear to me to be impact windows. So we'll say, yes, the window's updated, but not impact windows. Does this house fit in with the neighborhood? Let's see, a quick street view. This part of Jungle Terrace is a little bit more modest than some other parts over closer to Park Street. And so you can see the house next door has got that mid-century kind of modern feel with the slight pitch in the roof. And then there's a for sale sign here. I don't know how long ago this was, but a new house was obviously added there. So we're going to say that this house definitely fits in with the neighborhood. And what are our first impressions of this listing? So we're going to look at the cover photo here, and you can see already this, kudos to the seller here, because the yard over here is dirt. There's nothing here. And you can see the little grid lines here from new sod. So that's smart to put in a little bit of landscaping, which looks like what they did here, and some newer grass, because otherwise you would have had dirt, a cracked driveway, nothing to write home about curb appeal wise. So I'm going to say that the first impressions were average. It's a decent main photo. And let's take a look at this one. So this one scores 90. Now we're not making really any comments on the actual price. We're just looking for seller motivation at this point. And this one, if you're looking for a 2.2 around 1,300 square feet in the Jungle Terrace neighborhood, this one is a must-see. We've got price drops. We've got multiple price drops. Recent adjustment. It looks like a new renovation. So we've got a new roof, a newer AC. This is a house that you probably want to go see if you're looking in this price range. But let's bounce through the photos and see what we've got here. This looks like a big yard too. Small living room, decent sized bedroom. This looks like new tile here. New vanity, new toilet, everything, there's a lot of new stuff in here. Those windows look newer too. And this is a nice touch with this backsplash. So the flipper here did sink some money into this house for sure. Nice little sideboard action over here, a little built-in cabinet, nice little extra touch. So decent sized living area, decent sized bedrooms. It is only a 2-bedroom. But it is 2 full bath. You've got a nice screen porch in the back, and a good look at how big this yard is. That is a nice yard. You could either do an addition here, or you could certainly have a pool. So drop a comment. Let me know what you think about this. This is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath in the Jungle Terrace neighborhood. This is a pretty hot neighborhood to get in. It's not far from downtown, maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes to the beaches. No flood zone, but close to the water. There's some great parks over there. We're at $318 a square foot. Pretty good price. I would argue maybe we'd be in the $399-ish, and they probably would get more action because it is just a 2-bedroom. But otherwise, this one is, I think, a definite go and see. So drop a comment. Let me know what you think. And by all means, just go to buywise.homes. You can run any home you're thinking about through it. It'll take you about maybe 2 or 3 minutes. If you're going to go out and see 5 or 6 houses, but you only have time to see 3 or 4, and you need to eliminate 1 or 2, this is a good way to do it. It'll help you uncover some issues. And one of the primary issues that we're seeing now is sellers overpricing their homes and being stubborn and reducing price. They're sending a signal to the market that we're not interested unless you come to us with a higher price offer. So run it through buywise.homes. My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm a realtor here in St. Petersburg, Florida. If you're thinking about buying anywhere in the Bay Area, give me a call, send me a text, send me an email. I would love to help you out. And with that, I will see you next time.